This episode of the Backcountry Manifesto includes intense descriptions of a grizzly bear attack and photographs that may not be suitable for all viewers. If you're watching with a little one, viewer discretion is advised. Hey, welcome back to the Backcountry Manifesto. I'm your buddy out west, Hayden Samak, and this episode is brought to you by the good folks over at sharedpoor.com. I wasn't going to forget. I almost forgot. It's not how it's written, but I came back. Today on the show, we're airing the very first episode that we ever recorded.
Oh, yeah.
We recorded this about, what was it? Almost a year ago to the day, right?
Almost, isn't it? Yeah.
Almost. That's so crazy to think about. And we have an update since. We actually had Rudy in the studio for a minute today. But speaking of Rudy, this features outdoorsman and Navy vet Rudy Noorlander, who on September 8th, 2023, was tracking a wounded deer when an encounter with a grizzly bear changed his life forever. On this episode of the Backcountry Manifesto, Rudy recounts that encounter. That was written great. And his subsequent recovery. Like I mentioned in the top of this episode, this is kind of intense and might not be suitable for everybody. Rudy has shared with us some photos of the immediate aftermath of the attack that are included in this production, as well as some photos taken in the various stages of his recovery. Some of that content is frankly really hard to look at. His injuries were incredibly serious, notably the nearly complete loss of his lower jaw. We've blurred them here. But if you're watching this, particularly with younger folks, just know that viewer discretion is advised. Anyhow, Rudy is a great dude. His story is one of survival and like resilience, and you know, it's pretty amazing. So without further ado, friend of the show, Rudy Noorlander. How's it going, man?
It's going good.
Yeah.
Considering.
Yeah, considering.
You know, daily steps.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
How long have you been in recovery for?
This happened in September 8th.
Yeah.
And I was in the hospital till October, I think, 15th.
Yeah. You're still doing like regular appointments and stuff? You said you got surgery.
I got one more surgery in April that will finish my dot and lip and then dental work once the swelling's gone down.
Yeah.
The goal is to hopefully be able to eat steak by the 4th of July.
That's a good goal. I think we all co-sign that goal, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself, bro. You said you're from Utah and you...
I was born in Utah, but raised in Sheridan, Montana.
Yeah.
Little small town.
And how long have you been involved in, like, you know, you're clearly like an outdoorsman, man. How long have you been involved in that?
When we moved to Montana, my grandfather owned a mining claim up in the mountains. So we spent that first summer out in the mountains living in those cabins.
What were you mining for?
He's a gold miner.
Oh, he is a gold miner.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
He had there's 12 cabins that used to be a little settlement up there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Huh.
That we lived in the cabins there that first summer, and my brother and I were running around all summer with 22 shooting squirrels and rabbits and whatever.
And shit.
That was my first bear encounter was when I was 10.
Oh, really? You this is not your first run-in with a bear?
No, I've had multiple runs in with bears, and this is the first time that it went south.
How long do you think you've been hanging out around bear country? Or in bear country, I guess?
Well, pretty much most of my life.
Yeah.
It's like there's one place that I won't hunt back home because I hunted it once. You go down that drainage and all you can do is smell there.
Oh, really?
So it's like your trigger's off and it's like you're not really hunting. You're just making sure you're not being hunted.
Yeah.
But it's like when I got out of the Navy and came back to Montana, I went to hunting and fishing guide school out of Integrant. I spent 3 years guiding, hunting and fishing.
A lot of bears down that way.
A lot of theirs, but I didn't really have a whole lot of encounters. Yeah. I do have the dead knee from one.
Oh, yeah?
That happened there, yeah.
So this isn't your first close run-in with a bear either?
No, that one's kind of the funny story. It was a little bear just out on its own through the first year. Mm-hmm. And when the guide school shut down, all the bears that were going to the dump pile didn't have any food, and they all went somewhere else, and this one came to the cabin where I was at. Hooked his head in the screen the first night, and it's like, holy cow, locked everything up, and it's like, he's small enough I don't want to, go out there and have Nandi around the corner.
Oh, sure.
So the next morning I tracked it and found out he was out on his own, that he tormented me for like 2 weeks. Chased the cat up over the cow and chewed the cat lights off the truck, chewed the seat off the four-wheeler, broke into somebody's camp trailer, just night and day. And it's like I shot my guns in the air, shot him with my rubber-tipped arrows, and he still kept coming back. So I climbed up on the roof, and I had a bucket of rocks, and I just was throwing rocks at him.
So you were hazing the bear?
Yeah, and one day it's like taking the outside of the cow, and I walked around the cow to go eat lunch. And I looked in the window, and I was walking past it, and there he was sitting on my table eating my loaf of bread. It's like, so I went in the same window. He went out, opened the door, and chased him out the door. I picked up my bucket of rocks, and I was chasing him, throwing rocks at him, and I stepped in a goat hole and twisted my knee. So that's their injury up to that point.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not as bad of an injury considering.
Not as scary as this one.
Yeah, I have a buddy, Dr. Aiden Beers, and his job in Katmai, he was up in Katmai, and his whole job was to follow around like bears getting really close to camp and spraying them with, we're not spraying them with bear spray, but harassing the bears, trying to get them to avoid human encounters. Because, like, I don't know if you ever see those videos of, like, all the bears at the bottom of, like, a waterfall and, like, a whole bunch of people on decks. Yeah. That's Katmai, I believe. You, in September this year, you had, like, I guess, what you might consider a far more significant encounter.
Yeah.
With the grizzly bear. Now, before we get into that, what was your general attitude about bears and bear country?
I talk to Phila all the time when we're side by side because I got videos of theirs the last 2 years.
Yeah.
One that's on two cub grizzly and one a snarl grizzly chewing on something. And, people are asking me all the time that, we're going to have a problem. It's like, my bear philosophy and all the encounters I've ever had, 90% are going to go this way as quick as you go that way.
Sure.
And I tell people, well, theirs are kind of like people. Some are just assholes, and you're going to have a problem no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So this just happened to be all the wrong circumstances at all the right time.
Right.
So it just happened to be everything stacked up.
Yeah. Yeah. These, what got you into the whole situation at first was you were helping clients of Alpine Adventures, right?
Yeah.
They'd rented an ATV to go to do some hunting.
Yeah, and they were camped on the mountain.
Yeah.
So they had texted me the day before, and he's like, my son wounded a dog. Do you know anybody that has a tracking dog that we could hire? I said, no, not off the top of my head. Mine just died, or I just had to put him to sleep.
Yeah.
That I said, no, that I used to be a hunting fishing guide in my young days, and I'm a pretty darn good tracker in my opinion. So I offered to come up and help him the next day, and that's when it started. I drove out, told them I was on my way out, found their side by side that they'd rented, and I parked my four-wheeler, texted him, said, I'm here. He sent me a 10 drop, and I wasn't sure whether it was where they were camped or where they were or where they shot the deer.
They just sent you like it was like a general, got you.
And I'm not pseudo taxi, so I don't have an app on my phone that I could just punch that in and it would take me right there. Sure. But I could tell it was north of the Duck Ridge Trail, and west of the Yellow Mule Trail, so I started hiking down the Yellow Mule Trail. I get about a mile down there, and I get a text from the dad, and he's like, it's better as you come down the ridge. That way you don't have to hike the cliff. I said, well, there's 2 cliffs on that hillside, and I'm right between the 2. So I'm just going to shoot up through the trees, up to the ridge, and wait to see, whether I'm going up or down.
Mm-hmm.
And I only got into the trees maybe 100 yards, and I jumped a small grizzly there, and he took off like a shot. It's like I barely...
Oh, that wasn't the one that you got tangled up with?
No, he just took off running, and from that point on, I had my gun in my hand.
Yeah. How big was that bear?
Probably his first year out on his own. He was probably only a couple 100 pounds.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's probably kind of what set up the scenario, and I thought about that a lot after the attack, that's part of the sequence, because I guarantee it, every time the dig there was out foraging or hunting, that little bear was in his cache sneaking on his food. So the dig there was used to chasing something out of there, and the little bear was used to being chased away. So kind of all made sense when it all came together. And that anyhow, I hiked up the ridge, and I could hear some crows squawking, so I hiked over to the next ridge and looked down into the next valley and kind of hiked down that ridge until I got to the point where I jumped the hearth there. And then I got a text from George, and he said, yeah, that's where we left our backpacks. He's like, that's where we shot the duck yesterday.
All right, so at the point that you jumped that first bear, was there ever a point in time where you were like, maybe like back out? Or were you just like, oh, no, we're in the woods, we jump bears sometimes?
Yeah. And I've been shadowed and stalked by bears before and never had a problem. That's just, you got to be on the swivel and you got to have that gun ready to go. And
is that what you normally do? You carry bear spray?
I had bear spray right in front of my holster.
What do you think about bear bells?
And Phila said, you got to make noise, you got to be in groups, you got to have the wind. And it's like, that's not hunting. You want the wind
for sure
coming to you, not going away from you. You don't want to make noise, especially if it's a wounded animal, because you don't want to jump it and have it run.
So you were working up on this mule deer as if you were hunting it. You weren't necessarily looking for a dead mule deer. You were looking for a mule deer that you thought might jump.
Yeah.
All right. So you're coming up like a rocky draw at this point after you're running with a little bear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened?
Then I met up with George and Hayes.
Yeah.
And they were watching the same crows. And we devised the plan to just shred out, keep each other in sight, and head down the draw towards the crows. And we weren't very far down the ridge. And I stepped toward a log and looked over to see where George was. And there the bear was like 10 feet away coming at me already.
Significantly bigger than the first one?
Probably the second biggest bear I've ever seen.
And how big is that?
Big.
Yeah.
The biggest bear I've ever seen was laying on a dead cow.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't tell it was laying on a dead cow until it stood up to look at us. That's how big that one was. And I'm at 6'2", and I could barely reach the bottom of his scratch mark on the tree.
Really?
And this one, his fist was his nose was as big as my fist.
Yeah.
And he was big enough when he stepped on my chest, he collapsed my lung. Just like standing on me.
So what happened? The bear's running at you now.
So he coming at me. I lifted up my revolver, shot one shot, and it was in this hard. I spun the cylinder to the dead bullets again. And then he was on me. And I saw his nose and I saw my fist. But I don't know if I hit him or not. I know I got a hole here and a hole here.
Yeah.
So he just got 2 teeth in that arm.
Yeah.
And then
what were your first thoughts when this bear was? I mean, did you have thoughts? Did you have time to think?
No, my only thought was shoot.
Yeah.
And I shot, and then I suppose if you had a camera on me at that point, I probably did one of my famous eye rolls.
Yeah. Yeah.
With all the luck of or dad luck of it.
Yeah, one of
luck
those,
all.
why me, why right now? Like kind of.
But after the gun this hard, the iron there as he grabbed my jaw.
That was the first real contact that bear made with you.
Well, I don't know when I swung like this. I think I swung like this first, and he probably did here first. That all I remember is he had me by the jaw, and then he took me up off the ground by my jaw, and I could see George running at me.
And you're not a short dude.
I'm 6'2".
That's a sizable bear, man.
So yeah, initially, when I was under heavy drugs in the hospital, I said it was a 10-foot negative there.
Right.
I don't think it's that big that if I'm 6'2" and he's got me off the ground and he's leaning over,
yeah,
he's got to be at least 7 foot, maybe 8.
For sure.
And it's like, I could see George running at me. I said, help me. And then he bit down harder and broke my jaw, and I could just feel it breaking my bones. I didn't really feel pain. I just could feel the crunch. And
you just knew something bad was going on.
I knew he just hit through my jaw. And I assumed that I fell to the ground at that point because he lost grip.
Oh, sure.
Because I got one tooth on this side and one tooth on that side, and everything else in between is gone.
So he like kind of bit it clean off?
Yeah.
Really?
Huh. Pretty much.
Dude, this is like a really graphic question. Did anybody go looking for it?
The Fish and Game and Search and Rescue or Police Department went up there the next day to look for the bear that they have never talked to me about what they found, or the only thing that they told me is they stopped the search because the bear was guarding a dead deer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it wasn't the same one that the son had shot because it was buried already. And
oh, gotcha.
And he had it cached, so.
Okay, so you fall to the ground, then what
happened?
So
I fell to the ground. I don't remember what happened next. Next thing I remember was him running away from me.
The bear?
The big duck going away from me through the woods.
Really?
Yeah. And
why do you think that was?
Because the father and son were throwing rocks and yelling at it.
Oh, really?
Coming at it, yeah. And the father had a gun that he was afraid to shoot.
Because he didn't want to shoot
because the bear was shaking it around like a rag doll, he said. And so he didn't want to shoot at it and fear of hitting me. That they did what they did, and it got it to go that sometime between when he bit my jaw off and running off, he stepped on my chest and bit my leg. And I could tell that I was bleeding more from the hole in my leg than I was from my jaw. And the doctors in the hospital said that I was very lucky that it was less than 1/8 of an inch on one side and even less than that on the other side. If he had just bitten down just a little bit further, I wouldn't be here because he would have hit my artery and I'd have been gone. So that's why I say it's only by the grace of God that I'm here, because that's the only thing that stopped that there from biting just a hair more.
For sure. For sure. The what happened thereafter?
George was within seconds of there and he was at my side. He's like, are you okay? And he looked at me. He's like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, my phone's dead. Is your phone good? And I handed him my phone so he could dial 911.
So you were like fairly...
I was coherent the whole time. And the only time I don't remember is the few seconds in the attack. And I assume that's just from the trauma of being
just getting
crunched.
Wrapped up.
Yeah. Just trying to wrap my head around being crunched. And it's like, okay. This isn't good. He was by my side within seconds. He got my gun and fired it towards where the bear ran off. He just wanted to make sure.
Just keeping the momentum going?
Well, he wanted to make sure it would fire for one, because unsure. He saw him, they point the gun and nothing. And so he wanted to make sure it fired. And that's the only gunshot I heard. That he thought he shot a couple of times as the air was running off, that I didn't hear it. That he called 911, and that started the process of search and rescue coming to get me.
How far away from Big Sky were you?
The beginning of the Yellow Mule Trail, if you're going to count up the trails, is out probably 12 miles up.
Yeah.
As the crow flies from the Big Sky, it's not that far. That actually it was a pretty short flight to the Yellowstone Club when they flew me there.
Yeah. So the recovery effort starts when George grabs your phone.
Dials 911.
Dials 911. What happened thereafter?
Well, one of the first things they said was, how bad is it? And it's like, well,
it's not good.
His jaw's missing. And they're like, look, can you wrap something around it to stop the bleeding or slow the bleeding? And so he took my flannel shirt, wrapped it around it, then I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, that's not an option. And so he was on the phone with them for quite a while. They got search and rescue in route and her slide in route. And then he asked me, he's like, is there someone that you want me to call? So he handed me my phone, and I scrolled down and dialed my daughter's number.
Sure.
She's the one that answers the phones through the business the last couple of years. And,
right.
And she's like, hi, Dad. It's you usually don't call this time of day. What's up? And he's like, this isn't your dad. She's like, what's going on? He's like, your dad's been attacked by a grizzly there. And she's like, is he okay? And he's like, no, he's been attacked by a grizzly there.
Sure.
And she's like, is he alive? He's like, yeah, he's alive, and he's giving me the thumbs up. So he's coherent and everything and knows what's going on. But it isn't good. And she was on the phone with him, 30 knots the rest of the time, till the helicopters landed. That she had called my other daughter that lives in California and told her, and she immediately jumped on a plane and started her way to Montana.
Was there ever a point where you were unsure if you were going to be all right?
Well, when I met with the first flight team, actually, I got a different hat on, don't I? Yeah. They were the first helicopter to arrive, and they were told they couldn't land because they didn't have a gun and they didn't want them to land in a hostile area and have no victims to get out.
Sure.
Even though I think a helicopter would probably scare most theirs out of the territory.
Did you work towards just like a sage flat or something like that, or clearing?
No, I was right where they attacked me when they came to me.
Gotcha.
That we could hear the helicopter when he first got there, and it was about 2 hours. I know they were there before that because they were circling, and George was like, we're right here, land, we're right here. And
they just didn't want to because they just didn't want to get
They were told they couldn't.
Oh, okay,
by the search and rescue and the sheriff's department that they couldn't land.
Yeah.
And I said, well, just to let you know and ease your mind, the only way I was comfortable is laying on my chest.
Yeah.
With my arms underneath to keep my chin out of the dirt.
Sure.
That's the only way I could breathe and feel comfortable. And I knew I was losing more blood out of my leg that I couldn't say anything. And I was too weak to take my belt off and put it around my own leg. That I could feel myself fading a little bit. My head was shooting down. In fact, at one point I pulled my backpack over and put my head on my backpack so I didn't have to hold my head up.
Sure.
But as soon as I heard the helicopter, it's like it rejuvenated me a little bit, and I lifted my head up to look to see where they're at. And George kept coming back to me, are you okay, you okay? And I kept getting in the thumbs up, and I'm sure every time it was probably a little lower and a little lower.
Yeah.
Then the second helicopter arrived, and I saw Dutes on the ground that lifted me the Nor, and the guy comes around the Nor to me, and I don't know if he knew me or not, because a lot of people know me up there. That
Sure.
He's like, "Can you give me a thumbs up? You okay?" And it's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, we're going to get you out of here. We just got to clear the house so we're not tripping over things and get you ready to go." And they got me in the door and got me strapped in and whatever, and got me over to where the helicopter rope was, and they hooked me up to the rope, and I thought, here we go. They're going to zoom me out and get me in the helicopter.
Yeah.
Nope, they flew me to the Yellowstone Club.
Like when people are moving timber and shit?
Yeah, so if you look at the video and you see the line coming down, that's me flying to the Yellowstone Club.
Oh, there's a video of it?
I don't think there's a video.
Oh.
There's pictures from the Forest Service or Search and Rescue.
Really?
On the newscast that have been out there that it shows the helicopter and the rope coming down. And the funny thing is one of the guys is right there with me. And he's like, "You doing okay?" And it's like, if I could say something, it's like, "I'm doing okay. How are you doing?" Because I'm in the cage.
Yeah, right.
That it didn't take us long to get the Yellowstone Club, and they sat down and
How long did it take you to get to Yellowstone Club, do you think?
probably seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So, Tom Brady, you got grizzly bears out your back door, bro.
Right? Yep.
Hey guys, this is Ad Hayden coming to you, or I guess semi-Ad Hayden. We had a whole bunch of ad copy written up, but I don't think I need it for this product. I just want to tell you about something that I like genuinely. That's sharedpour.com. Sharedpour.com is the place to go, in my humble opinion, if you're looking for hard-to-find bourbons, allocated whiskeys. I know that those two are sometimes the same thing. Or just spirits in general. I've been using them since way before we even considered being partners with them. Actually, since before, Andrew, I think, when did we start recording episodes for this? Yeah, like since before we recorded the first episode of Backcountry Manifesto. And here's the receipts to prove it. You see this bottle of Mammoth from our bourbon? That's a single barrel select right there. Now check this out. Here, wait, you can hear it too if you're listening. Right, is that gonna be in frame, Andrew? Okay, well right here, I don't know. There's my receipt from March of 2024. I really do use these people. I believe in them as a company. They're great folks. Now, if you're 21 or older, that is very important. If you're a minor, pay no attention to this advertisement. And you live in the United States, sharedpour.com will ship liquor straight to your doorstep. You'll need a signature, but they'll do it with flat rate shipping, which is really helpful if you're ordering a couple bottles. That way you don't pay out the nose through shipping. You could order 10, 15 bottles. I don't know, maybe Craig, don't get mad at me. And they will ship for the same price as one. The other thing is that they're customer service experts. If you call them, should you have a problem with your order, and you won't, you will get a person who actually works there answering the phone and making the issue right. They have the best selection, whether it's a single barrel pick, again, a hard to find allocated bourbon, or even your daily sipper. You should check out sharedpour.com. And right now, and that is ad speak, you can use code BACKCOUNTRY, okay? That's Backcountry, all one word, all caps. I think that's important. That's what they were texting me and telling me was important. You will get 10% off your entire purchase at sharedpour.com. Go check them out. You'll like them as much as I do. You'll get a bunch of cool whiskey. You'll impress your friends. You'll annoy your spouse. And you'll have some great spirits. Backcountry for 10% off your order at sharedpour.com. So anyway, they get you to the Yellowstone Club. Then what happens?
Last thing I was there, I was trying to get my truck keys out of my pocket while they were cutting my tent leg off. And then the drugs must have kicked in that they gave me, because I don't remember anything from that to the ICU in Salt Lake. So I don't remember flying to those in, and they did a tracheotomy and chest tube and stuff in those, and where they flew me to Salt Lake.
Right. So your injuries obviously were super severe by any assessment, and then they couldn't treat you. I mean, they just didn't have. I don't want to say I don't want to rag on Bozeman Hospital, but they were we need to get you somewhere else.
Yeah, they weren't capable of doing that extensive surgery.
So they sent you down to Utah.
University of Utah Hospital, yeah.
What happened there?
They're supposed to be a really good hospital. They do a lot of cancer jaw reconstructions. And they're really familiar with this kind of operation down there, apparently. I don't remember the first day that when I woke up, it's where am I? And it's my daughters were there and my sister was there. And they're you're in Utah at the ICU at the University of Utah. And one of the nurses was there. She was kind enough to do a little swab with moisture on it to my tongue because it was like sandpaper.
Oh, really?
And surprisingly, it didn't get in my tongue at all. I don't know how.
That's kind of a miracle.
I don't know how that happened. If I had it on the roof of my mouth or how that happened, because I'm pretty serious in pictures are sticking my tongue out. So I don't know how that happened. That, early on, the press was on my family to find out what was going on and how I was doing and whatever. And so my family asked me day 3 in the hospital if I wanted to go public. And I was under the influence of heavy drugs, so I said, yeah.
Yeah, you were just mega dosed.
And that's why a lot of the early stories were false out there, because I'm trying to tell them what happened and, they're getting this and that and the other fact. And
how were you getting out messages in the beginning? I assume you couldn't chat with people.
I was writing on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And my daughter said it's in the beginning it was tough to even read that because it was really small and it was going downhill.
Oh.
Then it got deader as I got deader, and I got to the point where I had to have more than one whiteboard because I was writing so much stuff. And that was, I was pretty serious by the time I left there because they come to check my vitals. I'd play dead. And my daughter's a nurse in California. She's like, Dad, you're hooked up to the machine. They know you're not dead.
Yeah.
That I still got to come on and shout, don't do that to me. But yeah.
Were you just, is that your normal personality? Were you just so stoked to be alive that you were
I'm a jokester by heart, class clown type of person. So
how long were you in the ICU for?
I'm not sure if it was a couple weeks or a week. It was at least a week.
It was a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. And I was in the ICU for at least a week, I think.
And now you're back home.
Now I'm back home. I'm back at work.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my renters gave this shirt to me yesterday. They're those general surgeons in
Oklahoma.
They went to Oklahoma U.
Nice, man.
Gave me the shirt yesterday. And he's been following me on Fox News, he said.
Sure.
Yeah.
How are you feeling these days?
Good.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for this, I'd have been back at it within a week, probably.
Sure. Did this change your perspective on, how do you feel about bears now?
Same as I ever did.
Same as you ever did. Doesn't bother you.
And my philosophy on theirs, it's I never had a desire to go out and shoot a bear.
Right.
I will make an exception for this one. If I get them delisted, if I can get them delisted, and I told the governor, point me in the right direction on your poster boy for getting them delisted.
Yeah.
This is why they need to be delisted.
Well, that's an interesting that's an interesting thought. What are your? I mean, I guess your thoughts on delisting grizzly bears are pretty cut and dry. You feel like we ought to. And
I did lay for this. There's just too many on, and there isn't one grizzly bear alive out there that's been hunted.
Yeah,
their lifespan isn't that long, so it's like anybody that was around 30 years ago is dead. So there isn't any of them that have been hunted with the hunting season that knows the fear of humans.
Sure. Do you think that'll help?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I guarantee it, if that guy had been shot at a time or two, he wouldn't have been coming at, and he would have been thinking twice.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that one of like the arguments for not delisting the grizzly bears yet is that they're a bunch of island populations. So like obviously in like the GYE, we have a really substantial population density of grizzly bears.
Right.
But obviously, you know, you move away from that, and more or less the further you move away up until you get into like, you know, northwest Montana, right? The population thins out. One of the rationales that I've heard for not delisting them yet has to do with like, you know, there's not a lot of connectivity between particular like genetic pools, right? So like there are grizzly bears in like the crazies now, like that's been confirmed. I think, didn't they say they saw one like down in like the breaks or something like that?
I don't know. I
think they said that they saw one like going towards the breaks or something of that ilk. I don't know. That could just be one of those like rumors that you hear. But I think like a lot of the impetus for keeping the listing around right now has to do with those populations not connecting and not getting like the genetic diversity required to be, I don't know what, but it's just like an interesting thing to think about how people relate to these bears. You know, when you have people who don't live with them,
right,
and have never been in a spot, like, you know, folks back home in Pennsylvania, right? They think that because they don't see them, like these grizzly bears are just like hanging on by a thread. And the reality is like, yeah, in like some peripheral ranges for sure. But where they're thick, super thick.
Right. Well, I say it's like the buffalo. It's like, you know, they don't like them being haystack into the park or whatever. And it's like, my philosophy is shouldn't the Arid States hark. Same with grizzly bears. You shouldn't the Arid States hark. Once those buffaloes start coming out of their harks and they start hitting them with their treatises, they're going to say, holy cow, that's a big animal.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be out on the highway.
Yeah. So you're kind of thinking that it's maybe like what a lot of people well, I mean, it's not what they contend. It's what happened in Colorado with like the releasing of the wolves. That being, it's a bunch of people who don't really know what those animals actually mean are the ones that are like the most passionate about I guess like the policy surrounding them. Like the folks that don't want grizzly bears delisted often aren't the folks that are interacting with the grizzly bears. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one, man. I guess that's why it's managed by the state and science, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess not managed by the state and science. I guess that's the whole thing. Well, it's federally managed.
According to the governor in Montana, it's really close.
Yeah.
To get it on delisted.
Did you talk to the governor?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you have to say?
What?
Yeah. Okay.
He was happy to meet me.
Yeah.
Once I got out and could talk and whatever, and my daughter and I went up and met with him, and I told him, I'm your poster lawyer delisting them.
Sure.
Put this out there and let people know this is why. They don't need to be delisted everywhere.
Yeah.
That it's just like the hunting season for the wolves. It's like you don't need a hunting season throughout the United States.
Yeah, and that's like one of the things that I think is maybe like a communication problem with like a lot of folks is they believe that if a grizzly bear or if grizzly bears are delisted, then automatically it's going to be like open season on grizzly bears.
Right.
And really what it is it's just state management of grizzly bears. So even if grizzly bears get delisted, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a hunting season.
Right.
And you know, I'm not really sure what grizzly bear delisting means. It's hard for me to imagine that with the amount of tags that they'd probably offer for grizzly bears, it's hard for me to imagine that there would be a real impact like led by hunters. You know, because like
I don't know, and it's probably going to be like the wolves that they'll have a certain number that can be hunted or harvested that year, And if they get into some of these cows, it has to be put down. That counts as one. If they get hit by a car, that counts as one. If they get killed by another grizzly there, that counts as one. So it's not that they're all going to be shot. I don't know. I had to laugh because there's a billboard between Livingston and Bozeman that says, "Don't delist."
Yeah.
I don't remember what it says.
Something bad will happen.
Well, it shows a sound too, cause it says it'll start trophy hunting.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, one, you don't know trophy hunting, and two, you don't know theirs then, because if you're going to trophy hunt, you want the biggest deer out there.
Yeah. And
theirs, typically, females are smaller than the males.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be going to shoot a South cuz. You're going to be going after the big door, not the South cuz.
Well, yeah, and also if it's anything like most hunting laws, kind of everywhere when it comes to bears, and I say kind of everywhere because I don't think that it's the case that it is everywhere, but it's certainly the case in Montana, where you cannot hunt a sow with cubs,
right?
Very specifically,
right?
But also, you don't hate bears.
No. I respect theirs. It's like when I was in the hunting school, I watched a young silver-tipped grizzly chase down a calf elk. And that's when I realized how fast they were. And it's like the mom kept coming back to try and save her calf, and the deer kept chasing her off. And it's like, I realized then, it's like he could have caught her if he wanted to, that he was satisfied with the calf that he had got. So it's like, I have a lot of respect for theirs, and I had a lot of encounters with theirs. And so it's like, that.
Did you feel any particular, like how do you feel about, when we're talking about grizzly bears, right? Like we're talking about like grizzly bears, like as like a idea almost. We don't really talk about them as individuals. I'm interested like what your thoughts are on the idea of like that grizzly bear.
I'll win round 2.
As an individual. You want round 2?
I will win round 2. I already thought of 10 now. My daughter says I'm going to be like Rambo out there if I get in delisted.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. I have confidence in you. I hope it doesn't come to round 2. I hope you don't run into that bear again.
If it does happen, I joke around with my clients all the time. I said I'm going to have him mounted once I get an office where, I'm permanently set. I'll have him stuffed and he'll be over the door. So when they come in, he'll be like, "Yep, that's Rudy's there."
And now, today, in the studio, we have Rudy back with us to give us an update, man. You look great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is amazing. When you came in today, I had no idea. Describe what they did for you, as far as making you look so good, dude.
So I went to a prosthetic guy in Salt Lake, and he put magnets in my teeth, and then made a mold and matched my skin color and did little hairs on the chin to try and match my hair on my face, and did as good as he could to match, and it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
It looks unbelievable, and you got like sort of like a bottom tooth like implant kind of deal going.
Yeah.
Andrew brought it up when we were talking earlier. One of your main goals was to be able to eat steak again. How's that going?
Oh, good. I've eaten a few steaks since then.
And you've been doing a lot of other things that you had been doing prior to the attack. Snowmobiling.
Yep.
A lot of hiking, a lot of spending time with your grandkids.
Yep.
And I saw some pictures, and I think we probably put them in the main episode of, you didn't go back to exactly the spot, but you went back to that general area.
I go back there not every day, but if renters get back that far, I always stop there and say, "Yep, right down this trail is where the attack happened." And I hiked in through those trees between there, and I actually buried my dog's ashes right there at the trailhead sign. So, yeah.
And do you have any plans to go back to the exact spot?
Maybe.
Yeah.
If we can get them delisted, I definitely will.
So you still have pretty hard feelings about the grizzly bears, huh?
No, I got Rambo'd up. So
Yeah.
I got my 357 still, and I bought a 10 mil, and now I got a 45.
So you're.
And I buy nothing but bear loads.
Yeah.
That's all I buy now is bear loads. So
yeah. What's some other stuff that's happened? Are there any like other big milestones or?
Not really.
No, just back to business, huh?
Back to business, trying to get as normal as I can.
Yeah.
Actually got my granddaughter driving her own snowmobile this year, so.
Oh, that's cool. A lot of people have had catastrophic injuries like the ones that you have. What's been your like experience in dealing with it? What advice would you have for somebody like, hopefully nobody has to go through what you went through, but what's some advice you got for people?
I definitely don't recommend kissing a bear. But, I've always said, life can always be better. It can always be worse. Doesn't matter what situation you're in. Whatever happens to you, it could always have been worse. It could always have been better. So I just take it with a grain of salt and keep trucking.
Looking back on it a year later, are there any particularly notable ways that it's changed your perspective on like life and your kind of day to day, or?
A little more spiritual. I've always been religious and somewhat spiritual, but it's definitely focused me more on the only reason I'm here is by the grace of God. He's the only one that could have stopped that bear just short of killing me, and that's the only reason. Because there's no bear out there that's going to stop just short of the kill.
Except for that one, I guess.
And that's why I say it's by the grace of God. He's the only reason that I'm here is he stopped that bear just short of hitting my artery.
What does more spiritual look like for Rudy Noorlander?
Try and use my experience to help people. That's the whole point of doing things like this and news interviews, and is to try and, it doesn't matter if somebody's just, having a bad day or whatever, you can always look at somebody else's life and gain some experience or some outlook that'll help you. So that's my whole goal is that, whether it just, I was out with some people yesterday and the girl was drinking a bottle of water and she had her helmet on. She's like, man, this is tough. I said, welcome to my life. And she's like, I just didn't even think of that because those small bottles, I can't drink. I tried to drink a can of soda yesterday and it's like all over me. Gatorade, I'm fine with the wider bottles. I can drink just fine. A glass of water or whatever, I can drink just fine. I can do a straw in a can and drink it, but straight out of the can, just not enough lip groove to get it to go, so. But yeah, I just, hope people can understand that, there's reason things happen, whether they're good or bad. There's always a reason for it.
Yeah. Well, would you say that, I guess, well, it sounds like what you're saying is, in a lot of ways, just being thankful for, like, what's going on right now and, like, things as they are and knowing that things can always kind of get sideways or things that you took for granted at one point won't always be there to be taken for granted.
And try not to take things for granted. Nobody's promised tomorrow. None of us are promised tomorrow, so don't think your kids, your grandkids, your job, what you do for a living, your house, your family, don't take any of that for granted.
Well, Rudy, thank you so much for coming back on with us, man. It's really great to catch up with you. It's great to see your recovery. You look amazing, man. And if you guys want to catch up with Rudy, if you want to follow along with all the stuff that he's doing, if, I don't know, you're out in Montana and you want to rent some snow machines or some side-by-sides, you need to check out Rudy's spot. It's Alpine Adventures Big Sky. And you can look him up anywhere. You just type that in, Alpine Adventures Big Sky, into the old Google machine, and you will find Rudy Noorlander. Thanks, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of the Backcountry Manifesto podcast. If you want more Backcountry Manifesto, go ahead and check out one of these links right here. And make sure to share the podcast with your friends. Comment, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really helps us out. Again, thank you very much for watching. Now go check out one of these things. I like this one. This one was a good episode, I promise.